All right, so bundle up, folks, because we're about to take a deep dive into a real chiller. We're
Yeah.
talking about the Dyatlov Pass Incident.
Yeah, a real head scratcher. 9 hikers vanish in the Ural Mountains. What year was that again?
1959, right in the thick of the Cold War. It's February, which in those mountains means you're talking brutal conditions.
And these weren't exactly amateurs, right? Weren't they experienced hikers?
Absolutely. Students from the Ural Polytechnic Institute, they were led by Igor Dyatlov, a guy known for really knowing his stuff when it came to the outdoors.
So what were they aiming for on this trip? Some
Yeah.
kind of expedition, right?
Yeah, they were tackling a challenging route, trying to reach a certain elevation to earn a grade the third hiking certification.
That was a pretty big deal back then in Soviet Russia, yeah.
Oh yeah, a real mark of achievement.
Yeah.
But as we know, things took a dark turn.
Vanished without a trace.
Yeah.
Until weeks later, right?
Right. Search parties are sent out, braving the elements, and eventually they stumble upon the group's abandoned campsite.
And this is on the slopes of Kolatsiakl, if I'm pronouncing that right.
You got it. Known by the locals as Dead Mountain.
Okay, now that's just creepy. Even the name of the place sounds ominous.
And the scene they found there, let's just say the name Dead Mountain was pretty spot on. Imagine their tent ripped open.
Ripped open. From inside?
Yeah, from the inside, like they cut their way out in a frenzy.
That's bizarre. You'd think if something was wrong, they'd just use the tent flap, right? What about their stuff?
Scattered everywhere. Food, clothing, even shoes just tossed about, as if they left in a blind panic middle of the night.
Okay, now that sends chills down my spine. What could make experienced hikers just abandon their shelter like that in the dead of winter?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Mhm.
And as if that scene wasn't disturbing enough, the bodies themselves added a whole other layer to this mystery. So we've got this scene, right? Total chaos. And these hikers are found miles apart, some with horrific injuries. What could have caused this?
Yeah, it's a real puzzle. Naturally, investigators looked at the obvious first. We're talking about the Ural Mountains in winter.
Avalanches have to be top of the list.
Exactly. An avalanche could explain the tent, the scattered belongings, even some of the injuries, but there's no evidence of an avalanche, no debris field, no signs of a slide path. It's just not there.
Okay, so scratch that. What about the weather? Could a sudden blizzard have caught them off guard?
Another good one, disorientation, panic, hypothermia. That could lead to some bad decisions in those mountains.
I can see it. They're caught in a whiteout, the wind's howling. Maybe they felt their only option was to cut out of that tent and make a run for it.
Except no record of a severe blizzard in the area during that time. The weather was rough, sure, but nothing like a full-blown blizzard.
So we've ruled out two of the most likely culprits. And I gotta say, this is where my mind starts to go to some pretty wild places.
Let me guess. You're thinking about the name of the mountain again? Dead Mountain?
I mean, you can't tell me that name doesn't make you think of, well, something unexplained. Did anyone seriously consider the Yeti?
You'd be surprised. The Yeti, or the Mank, as it's known in that part of the world, comes up a lot.
Seriously.
Seriously. And look, I get it. You've got this remote location, strange injuries, a healthy dose of Cold War paranoia. People are looking for answers, and sometimes those answers lead to some pretty strange places.
But realistically, is there anything to support the Yeti theory? Any footprints, sightings?
Not really. The Mansi people who live in that region have legends about strange creatures, but that's about it. No concrete evidence to link a Yeti to the Dyatlov Pass incident.
So, no avalanches, no blizzards, no Yetis. What about other humans? Did investigators ever explore the possibility of, I don't know, maybe another group crossing paths with the hikers? Some kind of conflict?
They did. Especially given the political climate back then, they had to consider all angles. But again, nothing panned out.
No signs of a struggle? No evidence of another group in the area?
Exactly. It's like they were the only ones out there.
Okay, so if it wasn't the mountain, the weather, or other people, what else could it be? It's like we're hitting a wall here.
Yeah.
But we haven't talked about one theory yet. The elephant in the room, so to speak, during the Cold War. What about secret military operations? Could this have been some kind of cover-up?
I was wondering when we'd get to that. It's certainly a popular theory, and you can see why, right?
Or absolutely. Secret weapons testing, experimental technology. The Soviets were notorious for that kind of thing.
Exactly. And the fact that some of the hikers' clothing tested positive for low levels of radiation.
Wait, really? There was radiation?
Yeah, it was a small amount, but enough to raise eyebrows. Some folks point to that as evidence of some kind of military involvement.
Well, I can see that. But did they ever find any concrete proof? Any documents, eyewitnesses?
Nothing solid. It's all speculation. No confirmed records of military activity in that area, at least not during that time.
It's another dead end.
Yeah.
But before we throw in the towel, there's one more theory you mentioned earlier that I want to unpack. Something called infrasound. What is infrasound?
It's basically sound that's too low for humans to hear, but even though we can't hear it, it can still affect us.
Okay, now that's just creepy. How so? What does it do?
Well, it can cause all sorts of weirdness, nausea, dizziness, anxiety. Some researchers even think it can trigger feelings of intense fear and paranoia.
Wait, are we talking about a real
Oh.
phenomenon here? Like, this is a scientifically proven thing.
Yeah, infrasound is definitely real. It's used in a lot of different fields, actually. What's interesting is how it might tie into the Dyatlov Pass incident.
Okay, I'm all ears. How could infrasound have played a role in this whole thing?
So the Dyatlov Pass, it's got this unique topography. You've got these two peaks that flank the area where the hikers set up camp.
Right, I'm picturing it. Go on.
Now, imagine wind blowing over those peaks. Under the right conditions, it can create these swirling vortices of air.
Like mini tornadoes?
Kind of, but not as intense. They're called Kármán vortex streets. And these vortices, they can actually generate powerful infrasound waves.
Okay, now you're just messing with me. You're saying these invisible sound waves could have swept over the campsite.
That's the theory. And if those waves were strong enough, they could have caused some serious havoc. Imagine the hikers just bombarded by these waves of nausea, fear, maybe even hallucinations.
Oh, that's a chilling thought. It's like something out of a horror movie. They'd have no idea what was hitting them.
Exactly. They might have felt like they were going insane. It could explain why they cut themselves out of the tent, why they ran out into the cold with no shoes or proper clothing.
Running from a threat they couldn't even see or hear.
Exactly. It's like their survival instincts went haywire.
This infrasound theory, it almost seems too strange to be true. But it kind of fits, doesn't it? At least it explains some of the weirdness.
It does offer a possible explanation for their seemingly irrational behavior. But it doesn't answer everything.
Right, like why were some of them so badly injured? And what about that ninth hiker, the one found so far away from the others? How does that fit into the picture?
Good points. Those are still big question marks.
It's like every time we think we're getting close to an answer, another question pops up.
That's the thing about the Dyatlov Pass incident. It just keeps throwing curveballs.
Maybe some mysteries are just meant to stay mysteries.
Oh, maybe. But hey, that doesn't mean we should stop searching for answers.
True enough. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. Avalanches, yetis, Cold War conspiracies, even invisible sound waves. What's the biggest takeaway here for our listeners?
That sometimes the most compelling mysteries are the ones we may never fully solve.
And that's okay. It's a big, weird, wonderful world out there, and there's still so much we don't know, which is kind of exciting when you think about it.
I like the way you think. There's always more to explore, more to learn.
Exactly. So keep that sense of curiosity alive, folks. And if you have any theories about what really happened at Dyatlov Pass, we'd love to hear them. That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Until next time, stay curious.